Hey, I'm Killian Piraro and you're watching Hella Artsy. I love making things with my hands. I've done a lot of embroidery. I've been doing that for like 20 years. I love a lot of different mediums that are tactile. I've also tried jewelry. I'm getting more into wheel pottery. So like really anything where I'm like using my hands just feels very delicious to me. And yeah, that's kind of how, honestly, like I started doing clay just about 3 years ago, and I don't even remember why it occurred to me. Like I'd never tried it before, and it just kind of popped into my head to start doing it, and it was immediately so enjoyable, and I was making cool stuff that I really liked, and kind of felt like my hands already knew how to do it, which is a really cool feeling. So a lot of these pieces, obviously, like I do a lot of animal forms, and I think the inspiration there is just that I think animals are magic. I think they have this kind of secret hidden power, and that, I don't know, just when I'm out in nature, I'm always just very drawn to like trying to spot birds and like little, you know, if I see a rabbit, oh my God, it's like makes my whole week. And so, yeah, I don't know, the things that I end up making honestly just kind of pop into my head, and they're just like kind of interesting images, and I will kind of like, you know, kind of iterate on them and think on them for a little while and decide to start trying to execute them in clay. A lot of trial and error. A lot of just trying, like with this stuff, with the polymer clay, it's a lot of just trying different types of clay that all kind of have different firmnesses and are like suited for certain types of work. And so it's kind of just yeah, like I said, a lot of trial and error, watching YouTube videos to kind of see what works. And there's always like a little bit of an engineering aspect to it, especially with like bigger pieces that require like an armature underneath, where you actually have to kind of build a skeleton before you're even really sure what it's all gonna look like. And that's a unique part of the challenge that I wouldn't have thought of going into it. And with the jewelry as well, it's a similar sort of like, this has to sit on a body, and it has to have like, you know, you have to be able to put a chain on it or earring hooks or whatever. And so it's like a little bit of a problem solving process there. Yeah, that's a really cool question. I've actually started getting into wheel pottery, which is like very functional in its product. But the reasons that I'm doing it are still the same, where this is just like so enjoyable for me to be using my hands making something. I think the functional thing comes in too with the jewelry pieces, which is kind of like an interesting mix of just aesthetic versus functional. Because like I said, it does have to, you know, it's not just supposed to sit on a table, it's supposed to be wearable, so it needs to be light. And yeah, even just making something that can like sit on a table and not fall over is always just kind of an interesting part of the challenge, I think. I think art, like functionality and aesthetics are always kind of, like they're maybe not always a binary, you know, like art serves a purpose, even if it's just sitting in your home looking pretty, even if it's not something that you can use for something else. I think that's kind of a cool thing to remember. I struggle with that too, and I think that is sort of being programmed in a capitalistic society where the things you're doing has to have some kind of, you have to be able to sell this, right? It has to have some, you know, market value beyond just being something that you created with your, like, I think creativity is like human superpower. That's like what we're all here to do, is to create, even if that's not in a like artistic, what people think of as an artistic way. And so, yeah, trying to like divorce yourself from thinking of things as having to have some kind of, you know, some kind of value. Like, well, what is that for? It's not for anything. Like it's for me, or it's for you, it's for like whoever connects with it. Sometimes I think of like certain things, so like these pieces that I'm making that are a little bit more abstract and a little bit more like they're not quite as representational. This actually started because I wanted to just like make more sculptures, because it was very enjoyable to make things and to work with clay. Especially, you know, like after a long day at work, I kind of just I don't necessarily want to sit and think really hard about what a rabbit looks like and fuss with it for weeks. And I kind of just wanted to play with clay. And so I started just kind of like doing what felt good. And it sort of turned into these kinds of forms. So I think it's just kind of like whatever, like the mood that I'm in. Like if I want to kind of make so, if I have something in mind that's more representational, then I'll kind of, like for a jewelry piece that I have a cool idea for, or just, yeah, it's kind of just like whatever I'm inspired to do and whatever I feel like I have the like emotional capacity to do. It's like, man, I just want to sit and make something fun, or I like actually want to like work on something and collect reference images and build an armature and stuff like that. So, this is interesting. Like, this is my first time showing my work in public. And yesterday, everybody who comes up to the table immediately kind of starts like touching everything, which is fine. Like, it's pretty resilient, like you can touch it. But I think maybe that's kind of an interesting aspect, that it is something that you can interact with in a tactile way, and you can even wear it, which is, yeah, it's just kind of cool. Like, you wouldn't go up and touch a painting. You can experience that in a lot of ways, but that's just not part of it. So I think that's kind of an interesting aspect. Ooh, something that I have struggled with working on through this sort of work is patience, which I kind of don't have a lot of naturally. And like, pieces like this especially just take hours and hours and hours. And it is something that I am trying to, like, I think of it as my teacher. Like, this is why I have these ideas. And they are going to take a long time. They're very time consuming and painstaking to execute, but it's very worth it. And that is something that I think that kind of like informs other areas of my life, just kind of cultivating a sense of like, and again, like there is no agenda. There is no time frame on this. Like, you don't have to like make these things to please anyone or to sell it, or there's no deadline. And so like, I think that's kind of a good lesson in life. It's just like, you don't have to, this isn't about anything but just making it for the pleasure of it. Yeah, I would love to say that I have a website. I don't yet. I'm working on it. But I am on Instagram at Piraro_studio. Yeah. Thank you so much.